Actually, we're just going to make it more interactive, so to speak. The migration, so let me just say this. So we're going to do kind of, just let you know, we have a migration TV at our studio. So you don't know how this at the migration segment. It's kind of better creative, it's kind of very interesting. So my name again is Akinwale Royal Jomo from Migration TV. The Center for African Studies here in University of Porto. And I'm having a guest today. Please, can you tell us your name, please?
Yeah. Just want to say, first of all, it's a pleasure and honor to be here. Thank you for the invitation. It's great to be in Porto, Portugal. My name is Dr. Ngozi Omambala. I wear quite a few hats coming from Lagos, Nigeria. I currently serve as the Vice Chair for NACIMA. NACIMA is the Nigeria Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Banking. We are basically the apex Chamber of Commerce across Nigeria, covering all sectors of the economy. I'm the vice chair of one of those, which is the creative economy. So my remit is basically everything to do with the creative economy. I was asked earlier on, what does that mean? What does the creative economy mean? Well, basically it's everything to do with areas like fashion, film, food, technology, art, creativity, business as well. So I'm at the intersection of business and the creative side of things, because as far as NACIMA is concerned, the creative economy is a driver for the Nigerian economy. And just to give you some stats, it's the biggest industry outside of oil and gas for Nigeria. So, and it's predominated, I should say, by youth and women. So if you've got any idea about Nigeria's population, our population is currently rising at 240 million, and of that population, over 70% are under 30. So that will just let you know that our population is a very, very huge young youth demographic.
Right. Well, thank you so much. That's like an interesting intro into the future of young people, pressure on migration, right, and of course the opportunities. So how do you think that strategically we can have the young people engaged? What structure or superstructure can be created to make sure that we can align those energies, especially in the creative industry?
Well, I think, with AI, I think AI has got a large component, and it can play a very influential role on creating jobs, building infrastructure within the industry, because we have an industry that, although it's developed in terms of, we have our Nigerian artists who are doing very well, globally, internationally. Fashion is another top seller within the global sphere, food, technology. But what you'll find is the infrastructure has not caught up with the pace of growth in that sector. So what we're looking for is we need to build infrastructure. And I think with AI and migration as well, because migration is not only about, people crossing borders, it's also about ideas. People who are crossing borders are human beings. They have ideas, they've got skills, they've got talent. But what we suffer from is probably that capital alignment to sustain the sector. So in answering your question, technology is vital to that growth, especially building at scale.
Yeah, I'm happy someone from the city of Porto is here. There is a project that was part of about last year. So about 8 Nigerians came into Averio University, as a matter of fact, to incubate ideas and their creative sector. And I'm mentioning that because University of Porto can equally have that as a project, because City of Porto is expanding, and there has to be a matching of the labor supply and demand. So what demand of labor do we have need in Porto? So that way we can aggregate that with a chamber that you represent to make sure that internet start working. So my question is this: so will your chamber be looking into how this should happen? Because after this conference, again, we don't want to have just, of course, we're going to have a production of our usual Africana studio, right? We're going to have a book. But at the same time, I think for us at the Migration Lab, we just need to have projects which we can say, oh, now based on 2026, now we now have a project and it's still Porto based on the conversation that we had here. So the question to you, just in closing, is that how will the Chamber of Commerce from Nigeria, from other African countries, be able to align already the institution locally right there, regardless of the challenges that we have, right?
I think what you said makes sense, but I think as well there has to be real understanding of the mechanics of migration and the positive side of it. At the moment, migration has got a pretty negative image. We know from the past, certainly when I was in school, I think it was Irene that spoke about the Windrush generation. When they were welcomed to the UK, they were filling a lot of jobs, and now that generation is doing very well. So we have to realize that migration it's an asset sometimes, because you're bringing in like people who have got a different mindset, who are talented, and who can actually contribute to societal growth and empowerment. So from that respect, another thing I wanted to talk about briefly was the fact that what the continent is offering, we have a huge youth demographic. We know in the West that there's a big aging generation. And the two really, there's synergy between the two. Young demographic and an aging population of the West. And it's really bringing together that mindset to say, you know, that there shouldn't be fear. There are definitely pluses to be gained from that. So I think it's policy, governance. It always comes back to governance, leadership, and education.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think the final word I think has to be thrown out there is collaboration. Collaboration locally and collaboration globally. Because, and you mentioned digital, so somebody can still sit in Lagos to support a company here in Porto. So mobility doesn't have to be physical any longer. So that's what, so the gentleman, one of the gentlemen I knew from that Averio project actually went back to Nigeria and still supporting the project in Averio. So I just learned that mobility actually now, for most parts, is not going to be like physical mobility any longer. So that digital mobility, because of, again, technology, we need to really improve upon that, and it can make it faster. When it works, everybody can real time enjoy conversation. So on the final note, before we close on this session, is how will the collaboration happen? What is your final take on that? How do you think that the sending nation, which is the developing countries, the South, should be proposing for the first time, right? Usually it's the North proposing and say, this is what we got, go figure it out, that is what we got. This is the level of visa we want. We want you to have this visa, we give it ABC names. How do you think that the sending countries needs to start creatively thinking about different type of visa and how they want their citizens to migrate abroad?
Well, a few points. It's always results that show effort. When people see results and see success, it opens up gates. I think organizations like NACIMA, who I represent, very much see the positive side of migration, collaborations and partnerships across different sectors of the economy. So already, you know, a huge, powerful organization like NACIMA has really got the ear of partnerships and collaborations. So I think that's always going to be the first step, the powers that be. And then I think it starts trickling down. When you start seeing results, then people start seeing, okay, we understand that this is the way forward and this is the way to open gates. So,
right. So
education.
All right. So on that note, I think we just put an end to this session because this is very important and tangible into our next steps. And by tomorrow, we're going to be sending an MOU with the NACIMA Creative Department on this. And of course, we're going to draw the city of Porto in. Of course, since we're in the university, we need to be engaging the. So that's kind of tangible and takeaway from this conference. Again, thank you so much, Dr. Ngozi.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having us today. All right.